The United States has decided not to renew a temporary sanctions waiver that had allowed countries, including India, to continue limited purchases of Russian and Iranian oil, marking a clear return to stricter enforcement amid ongoing geopolitical tensions. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced that the general license, which was introduced as a short-term measure, has now expired and will not be extended under any circumstances. The waiver had been designed to permit the delivery of oil shipments that were already in transit before March 11, ensuring that cargoes stranded at sea could reach their destinations without disrupting global supply chains. According to Bessent, all the such shipments have now been processed, effectively eliminating the need for any communication of the policy. He emphasized that the measure was never intended to provide long-term relief, but rather to stabilize markets during a period of heightened volatility. And this temporary easing of sanctions came at a time when global oil prices had surged sharply, crossing the $100 per barrel mark, following escalating tensions linked to the US-Iran conflict and disruptions in critical maritime routes. One of the most significant factors contributing to this instability was Iran's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, a vital choke point through which a substantial portion of the world's oil supply passes. And in response, the US administration briefly relaxed restrictions in order to prevent a severe supply shock and to keep oil flowing into international markets. India emerged as one of the primary beneficiaries of this waiver. As one of the world's largest crude importers, the country took advantage of the relaxed rules in order to secure additional supplies, including around 30 million barrels of Russian oil. In a notable development, India also received its first shipment of Iranian oil in 7 years during this period, with around 4 million barrels arriving on 2 vessels. And this marked a rare exception to the otherwise strict sanctions regime that has largely kept Iranian oil out of India's energy basket in the recent years. However, the policy shift now signals a more aggressive stance by the administration of Donald Trump, which is increasingly relying on economic pressure as a key tool in its foreign policy strategy. Alongside ending the waiver, Washington has issued a strong warning that it is prepared to impose secondary sanctions on countries and entities that continue to purchase Iranian oil or hold Iranian funds in their banking systems. And this means that even non-US entities could face penalties if they are found to be engaging with Iran's energy sector. Bessent made it clear that this approach is intended to exert maximum financial pressure on Tehran, describing it as the economic equivalent of military action. US officials have also referred to the campaign as an economic offensive aimed at weakening Iran's economy and forcing it to reconsider its strategic positions without necessarily escalating into direct military confrontation. And at the same time, the US has indicated that it expects major global buyers, particularly China, in order to reduce or completely halt their imports of Iranian crude as enforcement tightens. And there is also an ongoing effort in order to monitor and restrict maritime routes used for transporting sanctioned oil, further complicating the logistics of global energy trade. And despite all these developments, there are tentative signs of possible de-escalation. Reports also suggest that Iran may consider allowing vessels in order to pass more freely through areas near the Strait of Hormuz, particularly along the Omani side, if ongoing diplomatic talks yield positive results. Both Washington and Iran are preparing for another round of negotiations, raising cautious optimism in global markets. And for India, the end of the waiver introduces a new layer of complexity, but not necessarily a crisis. Government officials have maintained that the country's energy procurement strategy is sufficiently diversified, with supplies sourced from multiple regions to mitigate risk. While Russian oil has played a significant role in recent years, India has the flexibility to adjust its import mix if required. And in the immediate term, global oil markets have shown some resilience, with prices easing slightly amid hopes of diplomatic progress. However, the broader implications of stricter sanctions enforcement remain significant. The decision to end the waiver underscores a decisive shift in US policy, reinforcing its commitment to intensifying economic pressure on both Russia and Iran, while also reshaping the dynamics of global energy trade in the months ahead. That's all for now. Stay tuned to the Savera for more updates. Do like, comment and subscribe to the channel.